goodness. Big move Monday. Look out. A way to end the tournament.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Quad Pod. We are 4 men strong and strong like Poseidon, who Kevin is rocking. Shout out to our sponsor, Poseidon Strength, hooking us up with some pretty dope gear. Got some vests, got some sweatshirts. So we'll be rocking those on the show. So shout out to them. And also shout out to Adidas Wrestling, our other sponsor, hooking us up with some really dope shoes that we've all been pretty excited about. And we'll get you all kind of decked out in as well if we can. Make sure you guys are using our discount codes QP25 on Adidas Wrestling and Quad Pod on Poseidon Strength. Good to be back with Robbie, Austin, Kevin. I'm Holmes, and I'm back from vacation. Literally got back today at like noon. It was nice to unplug, be on a cruise for a couple days on a beach in Cozumel, Mexico. Had fun. Lots of drinks flowing. Lots of good shows that we went to watch. Lots of really good food. So it was awesome to check out and then come back and catch up on everything that had went on while I had been away. So yeah, happy to be back as always. We got some pretty fun topics to get into. A lot of really cool things that we're excited about. As always, we will end the show with kind of a cool question or theme, I guess, that we've been doing the last couple of days, or at least last couple of shows, I should say. But before we do anything, we weigh in as we do in wrestling. We got to always weigh in before we get to the action. And for my weigh in, I wanted to give some shout outs to a couple of guys that, and I guess this is kind of probably more a little bit of a plug than anything. I want to give some shout outs to my friends on the Two Nobodies podcast. Sonny Santiago's dad, Eddie, is the host and owner of that show, and I've been on that show a couple of times. Now, this week is a special week because on Wednesday when we do the live show, myself as well as Zahid Valencia will be on the show, and we'll talk about some wrestling. So make sure you guys are following me on Instagram. I'll make sure to put out the link to it. I'll also put it on the Quad Pod Instagram as well on Wednesday, so you guys can tune in. Zahid and I will talk some wrestling. We'll do some talk about the Dake match. We'll talk about the upcoming World Championships, his future as well, and his training and what it's like being at Oklahoma State and kind of what drove him to heading to Oklahoma State and leaving Arizona State. So, yeah, shout out to those guys for always having me on to talk, wrestling and football and NFL and college and basically anything. It's really fun to be on there and just kind of talk to, it's a guys being dudes kind of a thing over on that show, having a lot of fun. But it's always awesome to have other people promoting wrestling outside of the normal kind of, I'm going to say it, fragile guys that we have in wrestling media to promote it. So, like I said, make sure you guys are subscribed, one, to their channel, but two, that you follow them as well, because they do a really good job at just talking sports, right? They're not all wrestling all the time, but they all are really good about talking about sports and just kind of being guys. Sometimes they have dumb takes. Sometimes we all have dumb takes, even in our own sports. But make sure you're paying attention to that on Wednesday night, as myself and Zahid Valencia will talk some wrestling. And with that, I move over to Robbie to weigh in.
Two parts here. First, I want to give a shout out to the athletic departments that actually get scheduling done before October, because it makes our job a lot easier to be able to talk about things. And I hate basketball for holding that up for so many reasons, because it's their fault. It usually is. The other one, just shout out to my ACC coaches. I've been touching base with everybody the last couple of weeks and just catching up with them a little bit. It's always nice to catch up with them and see what's going on in my realm, and see how excited everybody is to get the new guys back on campus and get going.
Awesome. Yeah, we will dig into some schedules that we like, or at least we pinpointed a couple that have some pretty good sets of matches and duels this year that we're going to talk about today on today's show. Austin, over to you.
Yeah, I'll touch on something that I really just stumbled across a few minutes ago. Brown University Women's Wrestling had a $1 million endowment towards their program. They currently operate at a club level right now, but obviously this $1 million endowment will help maybe help solidify that to becoming more of a varsity sport in the very near future here. You got teams like Lehigh just kind of getting underway here. Iowa's been competing along with, some of the mainstays of McKendree and King College and things like that have been kind of going for a while. So you're going to see a lot more of the Ivy Leagues here step up too. I know Princeton is kind of in the works, Columbia as well, as we all know. And on the topic of women's wrestling, another second shout out here to Lehigh. They have 4 women competing at the U20 Worlds. Audrey Jimenez competing for the U.S., Abby Cooper, and Aubrey Kraser as well, all for the U.S., and Mary Manis, I believe that's pronounced correctly, representing Greece as well. So you hear a lot of talk about Penn State kind of dominating the boys side of the U20, U23 team, and not much chatter about the women's side. And, Lehigh has four girls there representing. So that's pretty cool all around.
Yeah. On this show, we support women's wrestling. If you can't tell, rocking the Oklahoma Sooners gymnastics t-shirt. For those that are watching, shout out to Melissa
Hell
Simmons,
yeah, Melissa.
who used to be the what was it, the
SID
director of ops, I guess, for NC
yeah,
State.
director. The do
and
everything for Oklahoma.
to do everything
NC
for
State.
Oklahoma State. Yeah, she sent me this t-shirt from the national champion Oklahoma Sooners. Each one of their signatures was on the back as well. So
And shout out to Melissa for getting me tickets to NCAA's in Pittsburgh, because those were really hard to get. So
yeah,
thanks,
she's
Melissa.
awesome. She is the Swiss Army knife of everything that you need, really.
Yeah.
Claunch, over to you.
Yeah, I didn't plan on necessarily making this my shout out, but I'm going to now. Just because I'm wearing all this Oklahoma State stuff. Also, Matt Boy, what up? John Smith coming back to coach the Oklahoma State Cowboys women's wrestling there. That's pretty awesome. He's joining Isaac Olenek, who I've interviewed a couple times, and is an awesome dude. Obviously was an All-American at Northern Illinois before transferring over to Oklahoma State. But yeah, clearly, I mean, they're investing into that program. They're really going to try to get it going there too. So I'm just excited to have more people that have John Smith stories, really. Because like the more people that have John Smith stories, the better. Because I ask anybody who like is constantly, around that guy. And they're always hilarious, especially if they can tell me a story while we're not recording something. So yeah, shout out to John Smith back in the game. And then one other thing too, I'll post this. Austin, you shared this with me. Theodore Roosevelt's wrestling career. So like you sent me this link, and shame on me for not clicking on it until like today. But like I clicked on it, and I was like, oh, okay. I figured it'd be like a Wikipedia page or something. It's this long article, but it has to be long because it's elaborate. He was like wrestling people all the time as like an adult.
He was a badass.
Dude, so like the whole thing was he was a sick kid, and basically his parents were like, you're going to get involved in some shit to like not be sick and weak anymore. And so then he was like working out all the time and ended up just being tough. And it goes on forever. He was wrestling with like Taft at some point. He was fighting some other dude. He was just doing it all. Jiu-jitsu, boxing, wrestling.
Was the Taft match in a bathtub?
It does not say.
Shout out to the 5 people who understand that reference.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good one, Robbie.
That was good. Son of a bitch. All right. Anyway, I'll share this link. Thank you for sharing it with me, Austin. But yeah, it is badass. So
yeah, I stumbled upon that. I was up in Boston for work, I think last summer or 2 summers ago, and saw a picture of Teddy Roosevelt on like their old, like from the 1910 or 1900 or whatever wrestling team it was. And I was like, oh, I didn't know Teddy Roosevelt wrestled. I looked a little bit into it, and yeah, he was a baller. Like I think he turned like the library or something in the New York governor's mansion to like a wrestling room, and like it was having matches, and he was bringing in people from Japan to like teach him all different kinds of techniques and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I figured you'd like that one.
His sparring partners included his Secretary of War William Howard Taft,
There we go.
a former college wrestler. So yeah, and here it is. Roosevelt later wrote to Ted
Taft
of his sessions with the Japanese master. I find the wrestling a trifle too vehement for mere rest. Blah blah blah. It's just awesome, dude. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt was a beast.
I think we found a couple more locked characters to go along with my Abe Lincoln pick. We got Taft, we got Roosevelt. The
I didn't know that
government
Taft
of
wrestled. I knew Teddy
locked
was a wrestler.
characters. Pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin mentioned it, so we might as well jump into the return of John Smith, and talk about this a little bit more, as he's going to be a volunteer assistant. I put that in quotes because, I mean, as much as we say guys are like volunteer coaches in wrestling, it's kind of hard to just like kind of be a volunteer. But John Smith, probably the most high-powered volunteer wrestling coach ever, is going to be joining the Cowgirl wrestling squad at Oklahoma State, which is awesome. And when I saw the announcement, it immediately made me think of what was posted last week, I believe by Flo, that Kennedy Blades interview where she's talking about John Smith. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Izzy Martinez, who is, one of the owners of RAF and, wrestling coach for the ages and of a number of different guys in Izzy style wrestling, is Kennedy Blades' coach, and he calls her champ. And this is a kind of paraphrasing that the comments that she made, the story that she told about John Smith and how Izzy called her champ in front of John, and John said, "Champ, she hasn't won anything." And John, instead of calling her champ, calls her silver until she wins something. And that was the video that, like I said, I think it was Flow Wrestling put out. So now, instead of being champ around John Smith, she is now called silver. So I think that's really, really funny. But then the other part of that, right, is with John Smith getting back into the mix of coaching, does that start to split up this Iowa dynasty that is happening? And Kennedy Blades just had what looked like a really good time training with John Smith. Does she say, I want to continue to train with John Smith and I'm joining Cowboy Wrestling, right? Do things like that start to happen with that connection happening there? Obviously, Iowa has been around for a long time in the women's realm and has the great facilities, but Oklahoma State is coming along, especially on that men's side, especially on that RTC side as well, as David Taylor made it a point to say that they are going to invest in the RTC, and that is where they're going to do a brunt of their work. So if you take a look at it, Kennedy Blades would be a huge deal if she decided to say, I'm going to go wrestle at Oklahoma State and I'm going to join the Cowboy RTC. That would be huge. Be a very big change. So I guess it's kind of a two-part question for you guys. And Robbie, I'll go to you first, is what do you make of John Smith coming back to wrestling? Obviously, we probably knew it wasn't going to take very long for him to sit out and just be on the farm for a while. But what do you think the impact is going to be? Do you think that we start to see some of the more high-powered female wrestlers navigating to Stillwater?
I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised that John unretired, because he's not really the retiring type.
The gray beard did fit him pretty nicely, though.
That he doesn't have to get rid of that. That goes really well with his vests, so it works well. He did get some good fishing done. That was that came out this week. He caught some fish that he was pretty happy with, so that's solid. But I think it's a good move for him to come in on this side. I mean, he's not stepping on any toes of trying to come back into the men's program where he built, and he's gonna be able to let David do his thing, but help out on the other side to build the women's program. I don't think we're going to see anybody like defect from Iowa, at least none of the big names. Like Kylie's not going anywhere, and Kennedy's not going anywhere. Macy's not going anywhere, but I think it definitely has an impact on recruiting. Iowa knew going in, like being the first major D1 powerhouse to get a women's program, they were going to be able to jump out on the recruiting and get the top names to start. And it's going to be catch up from there. And you see other programs like Lehigh's getting some good people, and I think Oklahoma State's going to fill that void as well, and it's going to make it more competitive across the board.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. For me, it's tough, right? Because I think that it's possibly something Kennedy Blades mulls over, though, if she's having that kind of like connection with him. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I generally agree with Robbie. It's going to take a number of years before anything too dramatic is going to impact, what Iowa has. I think part of the other, draw of going to Iowa is that it's not like they have a bum for a coach, like they still have a really great women's wrestling coach.
Yeah.
And also they've got depth, and you've seen some people go there and then they end up transferring away when they don't get to start, which is, what happens when you have an embarrassment of riches and talent, right? But I think you might still see some people start going other places, but that's just naturally. It's not a knock on Iowa when that happens. It just means that, thank goodness the women's wrestling landscape in college is getting more competitive and deep at that level. So that's very exciting news. I will, however, rather than elaborate too much longer on this, I will share a quick story about Dakota Gear that I heard about John Smith. So basically, the way I understand it is Gear becomes an All-American at his junior or senior year or something like that. He places 7th. And John was like, "Oh, great job." And that's the last time you're ever going to hear me say that, because 7th ain't that good. Something like that. He managed to compliment him and congratulate him and kick him in the ass all at the same time. So I love it.
I mean, if the stories about, John Smith that we've told quickly on the show already, he is a master of motivation, calling Kennedy Blade silver and Dakota Gear, letting him know 7th is good, but not good enough at all. Austin, what are your thoughts on John Smith returning from retirement so quickly?
I mean, I'm not surprised. He's been in the sport for so long. He's been coaching for so long. I know I'm sure he was relieved to be retired and sit out for that season, and then probably got bored. And once he has that itch to get back into it, right? And so, yeah, I'm not overly surprised by it. I'm not surprised. I guess I'm a little more surprised he's going with the women. I thought he'd find a spot in the men just because that's what he's so used to. But taking on this new endeavor with the women is really good for the sport, obviously. And I think it goes to show the commitment at Oklahoma State overall, men's and women's side, that I think they want to be the epicenter of college wrestling and RTC in the whole country, which would be a big deal for them, right? So you're seeing a lot of money invested in that, and I think it's going to come to fruition. It's brand new, and we're getting guys like John Smith in there already. It's just going to boost it up, right? And we were talking a little bit before about, well, would Kenny Blades ever transfer? I don't think so, but if money is being thrown around and discussed, and there's an offer she can't refuse, I think, to Claunch's point, that would be a good thing. We don't ever hear NIL talk about on the women's side, and we hear a lot about the men's side for different programs. But something could lure someone, if there's an amount of money that could lure someone away from Iowa to Oklahoma State. I think that's just the start of it. I think that would be great for the sport.
I don't think Oklahoma State has the pockets for that.
Yeah, they might define
said no one ever.
Yeah.
Speaking of building the RTC with a $4 million high school complex, that's another conversation.
Yeah, I mean the thing for me, like I said, my reasoning of connecting those dots was just like seeing how she talked about John Smith and how the connection was very present even without him even being in the video. But 2, the fact that they're going to need foundational building blocks. They're going to need big time talent to have more of those recruits that want to come in. And I mean, if you can't look at John Smith joining the women's wrestling staff and thinking that that's one of the biggest building blocks for recruiting, I don't know what to tell you. It is huge. And if he is already connected to some of the most credentialed women in our sport that still have NCAA eligibility, such as Kennedy or even her sister, who I believe is also at Iowa too. Like, there's a number of women in wrestling that have been highly credentialed on the international side that I believe might want to take a look at Oklahoma State based on the RTC factor, based on what is being built by David Taylor and the money that is behind them. Not to say that Iowa obviously doesn't have those things, but let's also look at the men's side of recruiting. And there was a tweet from from Bassett's little brother saying we just wanted the same thing that some of the other recruits are getting, right? And most people are speculating that the crux of that is seeing what Jack Sparks is getting when he's able to go to Oklahoma State and train, and you know how they're not able to go to Iowa and train and do kind of the same thing. So if Oklahoma State has the backing and the ability, I don't see them kind of stunting their own growth on the women's side to do the same thing and build a championship team and a caliber team over there as well. So yeah, those are just my thoughts on it. You guys have any other thoughts on building a women's team and the impact of John Smith?
I don't think you can understate the impact that John Smith can have on a program and the allure to come down to Stillwater.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
With that, let's move to U20s, sorry, going on right now. And we're only 2 days in, but so far it's looked pretty good for the United States. United States is currently on top with 75 points after the first 2 days of wrestling. 2 gold medals, one going to PJ Duke, the other one going to Justin Rademacher at 97 kilos. We also had D. Lockett, who was 5th, and Marisola, Cole Marisola, to be exact, was bronze at 125. What do you guys make of the performance on day one, setting the bar pretty high? Kevin, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on specifically PJ Duke, who, you know, we're going to see obviously on the senior circuit, but him, you know, kind of mowing down the entire field, as well as Rademacher, who wasn't even an All-American this year.
Yeah, dude, PJ Duke Nukem is out here just crushing people. I was like, man, that's a good sign.
Make that nickname sing.
PJ Duke Nukem.
Yeah,
I
for
came
those
here
who
to
don't,
kick ass and chew bubblegum. Bubblegum.
for those of you who don't remember the Duke Nukem video games, man, those were super fun back in the day. Anyway, yeah, PJ Duke Nukem's out here kicking ass. And again,
awesome.
like he's going to be doing it again at U23. So it's a good sign that he's already out here beating the kids his age. And now he's going to go beat up on the older kids next. So it's a great start for him, man. I'm pumped. Very, very excited. Rademacher, you got to be excited for too. I mean, and not just that. I mean, like just with Oregon State in general, you know, like they've quietly been just kicking ass. And you know, it was he didn't get on the podium last year, but you got to believe that like just the extra time and effort, clearly it's showing where like, he's far from reached his ceiling. You know what I mean? So that's exciting news for both of them. So, and then, you know, it's a kind of a bummer for Lockett. I kind of expected him to do a little bit better, but he's a guy who's bounced back whenever he's dropped any of those matches. And then Mirasola, man, it's a good thing Penn State's finally going to have a good heavyweight.
They've been
They found one, huh?
They found one somewhere, turning over rocks.
Been tough for them. And I think you're right about Justin, right? The, you know, Nate Angle leaving Oregon State and you know, headed to wherever he's going to be headed. I don't want to put any spoilers out, as I'll be talking to him this week. But it's more of a testament to Corey Crooks stepping up. And you know, he's a guy that, you know, when I talk to Nate, he's like, Corey Crooks is going to be a really good coach. He's already putting in a lot of work, and you know, we talked about who could replace Nate, and you know, we threw out a bunch of different names of guys that aren't even really in their system right now, and Nate was like, no, Corey Crooks should be that guy. He's already putting in good words and saying that Corey should be the guy that steps into his position. So, and this is definitely another feather in his cap, because he was in the corner for Justin during his run this weekend, over the weekend and into today. I agree on the D Lockett. I think we expected D to do better than, at least bring back a medal. But I think that you can't help but feel like he is a force to be reckoned with, and like he's just about there, right? We saw him compete at, was it Pan Am's at 74. So, he's been putting in a lot of really good competition, and I expect him to make a big impact at Oklahoma State moving forward. Robbie, your thoughts on the first results that we've gotten at U20s?
Man, they look great. And then today, Henkel and Stanich both looked fantastic as well. The whole squad's kind of putting it together. Really impressed with Rademacher. I still think he looks like Matty Singleton, and it confuses me every time I see them. But that's a whole other thing. But I think the team's in a really good spot. I think they have two more weights to go, and they're in the driver's seat for the team title, so long as they continue to wrestle like they have. So, I mean, nothing but things to feel good about from the USA side.
Yeah, they have 75 points. Kazakhstan is in second with 63. Azerbaijan has 83. Has 38 in third place. Yeah, Austin, I'm gonna shoot over to you and add a little bit more context to Stanich. I know he's a guy that you keep your eye on, obviously, with him being a Lehigh guy. Outside of the gold medal performances by Duke and Rademacher, as well as the bronze medal win by Marisola, we saw Stanich absolutely break a guy after being down 8-0. What do you make
Killed a
of
guy.
his performance, right? Like being like as elevated as we were after watching two guys win gold medals. What do you make of the Stanich performance? Elevating these performances by Team USA even more to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, just talking to some of the Lehigh faithful over the last few years, when he was making 25, it's pretty obvious it was a big cut for him, and talking to those coaches, they were saying, Luke Stanich is one of the most mentally tough guys they've ever met. And that means a lot coming from someone on the people on the Lehigh staff that have coached a lot of freaking good wrestlers, right? So along those lines, being down 8-0 didn't really affect him much. He was out there, stuck to the game plan, ended up winning 18-8, 18-point swing, which is incredible. And, then he wrestled a guy he's pretty familiar with, is Nini from Italy, out of New Jersey as well. So he had two
goes to Rutgers,
guys
yeah.
in the quarterfinals there wrestling. He snuck that one out 3-3. Yeah, and just it just bizarre talking. I shouldn't say bizarre, but it's just different with him because he did Fargo, I think, once or twice in high school and placed. He's not like a big known for his freestyle kind of guy. He's kind of under the radar with his freestyle skill set and experience, obviously. So you always had a, maybe not doubt, but always question, how's he going to perform on this big stage? This is a big deal for him. He's never been to anything like this. And just like that, he's a freaking world finalist, first time competing there. So it's really cool to see, going from 25 to 141 in the folk style scene. He's going to be a title contender at 141. I think having that redshirt year last year was great for him. And he's just learning wrestling in all forms, and he's just killing it right now. Like I said, going for a gold medal, it's awesome to see.
It speaks to the development in that Lehigh room, right? Where you have a guy that was at 25, is moving up to 41, had the red shirt year that he had last year with the wins that we saw him amass early in the season to kind of get that light shining on him. And you talked about his high school career. Wasn't really a guy that was highly sought after. And I feel like Lehigh has done that a good bit. Darian Cruz, as highly regarded as he is in the Lehigh Valley, I don't think that too many people outside of Lehigh Valley saw Darian Cruz winning an NCAA title, right? Like so it just speaks to the development and what they put into these guys in that room. And, you mentioned it, Austin, to start the show off, what they're, doing with the women as well. The women have, there's 4 girls out of that Lehigh room that are representing Team USA, as well as, would you say, Greece at U20s. So high levels of development happening in that room at Lehigh that you have to tip your cap to. It's pretty incredible.
And then you add in Connor McGonigal, who transferred out because it's him and Crookham at the same weight. He was an All-American last year at Tech. Like they've built a damn strong lightweight class, and starting to see that depth there. But then they're just building throughout the lineup. They're a quietly really good team.
Yeah, very impressed by what they've been showing so far. And, if with the new addition that we're hearing is going to be happening, I think it's going to take them to another level as well.
Certainly going to help the middleweights.
Especially technique wise, right? Especially technique wise. I think it's great. So hats off to Lehigh. Always good to see them doing well. Those guys do a lot of things right. So yeah, pretty happy to see them doing really well. U20s, like I said, we'll have more guys going for gold tomorrow. I'm not sure what that schedule is, but whatever it is, I'll throw a link to it down below because I don't have it right here in front of me. But I'll throw a link to the results and stuff. I know Earl will most likely be following that pretty closely, so it'll probably be an intermat link of all the stuff going on.
Yeah, I did see Willie's tweet. The first match starts at 3 a.m. our time tomorrow. Princeton's Ethan Rivera versus Oklahoma State's Rin Sakamoto. So two
you go.
U.S. wrestlers representing different countries, with Rivera's for Puerto Rico, Sakamoto's for Japan. So that's another thing we could get into another week of all these guys wrestling in the U.S. but representing other countries, and
We can hit on this Japan
crazy
pipeline
talk.
too, because you're going to see some more of that coming over too.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Those lightweights are going to be taking over.
Yeah, I think what NC State.
NC State's got one. Virginia Tech just was over there. Penn was just over there, and I would not be surprised to see either of those programs bringing in an international transfer.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, there's already 3, right? Penn State with Ono and Rin Sakamoto at Oklahoma State. So yeah, it's gonna be. I don't know. We'll definitely have to dig into it kind of at a later time because I've seen some mixed feelings about international guys wrestling folk style so far from the wrestling community. So we'll have to dig into it a little bit later. But speaking of folk style, there have been, and Robbie touched on this in his way, and there have been some teams that have put out their early schedules, letting fans know where they will be, kind of what their home slate looks like. The team that I'm going to be talking about, I believe, has already sold out their home tickets as well. So there's that. So that's something to be said about putting your schedule out early. Obviously, if you're Penn State, you don't have to worry about that. You've got a number of season ticket holders that are going to be front and center, and they're not going anywhere. And you'll always,
Well, not in the next couple of years. They will.
yeah,
Not going to be able to renew.
You'll sell out a good bit of those tickets just about every year. But these other teams, that want to build something and want to build community, such as Oklahoma State, who has sold out. That is who I want to pinpoint. They're putting out these schedules early and letting us know where they're going to be. And the opponents for Oklahoma State this year are Air Force. This is, early, but it's Air Force, Arizona State, Iowa State, Little Rock, Missouri, Nebraska, Northern Iowa, Oklahoma, Stanford, Utah Valley, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. And they have Iowa State, Little Rock, Stanford, OU, UNI, and what is that? I believe it's Utah Valley, maybe all at home. Is that what it was? Yeah, I think they're all at home. So going to be a pretty good slate for Oklahoma State this year. And then if you add in national duels as well, there's going to be so much that they are, such a good schedule that they are putting out. First, what do you guys make of Oklahoma State's schedule? And what a schedule, I guess, in the conferences that you guys looked at and that, we kind of split up, that kind of stuck out to you. Austin, over to you first.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma State, I like their schedule. I think David Taylor is not of the mindset of cupcakes, making an easy schedule. I think he wants his guys to compete pretty hard throughout the season, which is pretty evident with kind of hosting the national duels that you mentioned there in beginning of the year in November, which would be a great event. And it'd be interesting to see what he does and how he likes to create these schedules. And I guess what I'm interested in is seeing if he continues this same style of schedule throughout the years, or if he makes adjustments slightly and tapers back in certain months just to help with training. Because we could talk. Penn State, they have a different kind of schedule than everyone else. They don't really wrestle much going into the first semester. They wrestle a lot of their matches second semester, and don't challenge your guys too much. I mean, maybe because they're just really good, right? But they're not going to these big high-end tournaments in the beginning of the year like a lot of these other teams are. So it'd be interesting to see if David Taylor kind of sticks to that and wrestles this tough schedule, or if he kind of shies away from that. But the schedule I was looking at was Cornell, which was released last week, 2 weeks ago, and they'll be at national duels as well. This is all in the first semester too. They'll be at Cliff Keen in Vegas, and then they'll be at the Journeyman Collegiate duels. We'll face Illinois and Little Rock, and then they're going to be at the Southern Scuffle as well to kind of close out that first semester as they transition into that second semester. And I think it's a good schedule too, because looking at dual meets, they'll have Lehigh at Lehigh, which is always a really good barn burner. Then I think it's the second weekend of January. They'll have a tough Army West Point team, Arizona State, which should have a bounce back year. And they wrestle at NC State this year, which at the end of February. So that should be some good wrestling down there as well. And I'm interested in Cornell because they were a trophy team 2 years in a row. Last year they finished in 7th, which for a lot of programs is really good, but that was a down year for them, unfortunately. So they had some young guys, they had some people leaving. So we'll see where they stack up, and maybe a few question marks in that lineup. I'm not, we'll see what it looks like, but I think they'll be really good again. And, the schedule is going to test a lot of their old guys that are coming back, and some fresh faces we'll see as well.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we see the Cornell lineup in full force, right? I know, we've seen them before have guys that have been injured. But then, we mentioned this before where we've seen it years where a matchup isn't favorable for them, so they sit guys as well, right? Like I've done commentary at the collegiate duels where we expected Iowa State versus Cornell, and we wanted a David Carr versus Julian Ramirez match, and Ramirez already kind of notched that win, I believe, at Cliff Keen, Las Vegas that year. And because of that, I feel like because of that, he didn't wrestle that second match against David Carr because it helped him out seeding wise. Because if he was to lose that match, it would even the playing field, and he would then have probably a rougher time at NCAAs. As we know, it didn't much matter. David Carr went on to do the things he did, and Julian Ramirez went on to do the things he did. But I'm hopeful that Cornell has this great schedule, but that we do get a chance to see their guys as much as we would like to. And with that, I move on to Claunch. What's a schedule that you were checking out that you're pretty excited about?
Well, I think I probably looked at the same one that Robbie did. Are you going to talk about Stanford, Robbie?
I'll punch you in the throat if you talk about Stanford.
Honestly, what I was just thinking about was it's a good thing Julian Ramirez didn't wrestle for John Smith, because he would have had a mean nickname for him. But no, I mean, I'm going to just comment on some of the other ones. I didn't see too many others as far as schedules that were out, but yeah, I'm super pumped for Oklahoma State's schedule. I do agree that they're getting after it. And we'll see if that's just the exuberance of a new coach. David Taylor's never been a guy who, that I can remember running away from competition. I mean, shit, wasn't the one time he tore up his knee as a senior athlete is because he was wrestling an exhibition thing? You know what I mean? So the guy's always been ready to compete when it's time to compete. And I'm sure that's kind of the philosophy he's just trying to get his guys ready for also. But yeah, Robbie, why don't you talk about Stanford, and I'll join in on a little bit of that too, because that's kind of what I was starting to talk about too. I like their schedule a lot.
All right. Well, let me hit on a couple other ones, and then we'll go through Stanford. Ryan, you already hit on Oklahoma State coming out back to Virginia Tech. The Hokies made a trip out there last year, so they're returning the favor, coming out to the East Coast. NC State Cornell, that's going to be a great one. NC State hasn't released their schedule yet, but there's going to be a really fun duel in Raleigh. I won't announce the teams because you can figure it out if you want to, but it's going to be a couple guys who have coached under Pat, who are head coaches now, are bringing their teams down to the Triangle, and they're going to have a try down there in December. So that'll be a pretty cool event. There's a selection of coaches to choose from, so you may not be able to figure out the actual two teams. But then UNC's got a couple dates they released. They're going out to Nebraska, and they got UNI, which I think will be a really fun matchup for them. But Stanford, man, Stanford's got a hell of a schedule.
Yeah, they do.
They've got non-conference. They've got Iowa State, Oregon State, Oklahoma State, Penn State, Utah Valley, North Dakota State. And I mean, that's a hell of a run. They're not shying away from anything. And, last year they were, I'm going to say down, but they weren't bad, but they're going to be a really, really tough team this year. So they're going to be in a lot of those duels, and they're going to be really competitive. So it's going to be a really, really fun watch to see them against some of these top tier teams. Like them and Iowa State are going to match up really well, and that'll be a fun one.
They could legitimately lose to Penn State and lose like 8 of the 10 matches, and it'd be really close. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be one that's really excited. And then just the Oregon State piece of that as well. I mean, we literally just talked about how that's a badass team. So I'm excited to see them be able to have those two duels as well.
Yeah, Robbie, it's a shame people forgot about Nico Provo, though. So I think he's going
to. Gosh damn
it. Oh, man. You had to get him started.
Riled up.
Had to get him started.
Just because people are injured and out for a season doesn't mean anybody forgot about them. It just means they're not in the lineup. So we're looking at Stanford's lineup just super quick. Nico Provo coming back at 25, Tyler Knox, All-American, 33, Aiden Valencia, one of the highest recruits at 41. EJ Parco had some big wins last year, 49. Daniel Cardenas back in from his redshirt year, 57. Hunter Garvin's an All-American at 65. Lorenzo Norman damn near beat Keegan O'Toole and then kind of pissed it away at the last minute at 74. And not as strong up top. Brooke Byers should be decent at 97, but 84 and 285 will be holes for them. But they're going to be really, really good, really, really dangerous. Got some real heavy hitters there.
Stanford being in the ACC is still crazy to me.
Yeah.
But
it's the All Coast Conference.
Yeah, it's and not just from a wrestling standpoint, just like holistically, it's insane. It is ridiculous.
They're literally on the Pacific coast.
Yeah, like it doesn't make any sense at all. I am, little tangent.
I think we should add Hawaii and really just bring it back.
Yeah.
I am hopeful that at some point they redraw these conferences and say this is what's going to make things competitive in these 5 conferences. Give us the Power 5 at least back in these 5 different conferences, and not have a kid from the Cal baseball team flying to Florida to play Florida State because they're both in the ACC. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any damn sense. I get it. The money grab is so damn tasty for each one of these NCAA bigwigs. Knock it the hell off. Like, let's have actual maps that make sense when it comes in conferences that actually make sense according to the map. Like, it is ridiculous, but applause to Stanford, who, when they do travel, they book like 2 duels in that
2 or
time
3.
frame.
They've had a lot of weekends where they do a Thursday, Friday, Sunday.
Yes, so that they can get these dual meets in and still get their competition. Like, absolutely insane, but hats off to Ayers and those guys. Absolutely love them. Got close with those guys when they were coaching at Princeton. They were always awesome to me. So hats off to them and the things that they do and how they develop guys. But it is shitty how they have to do things because Stanford needed a conference for football. Just doesn't make
I'm happy they're
sense.
making the Virginia run this year, though, so I get to see them a couple times.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
true.
and then on the flip side, Holmes, teams going out there to wrestle. It's like they have one dual meet in a weekend with a team in their conference. They have to book other out of conference teams, and sometimes
It
that gets
has
filled up.
helped.
It's sloppy, but it
It
is what it is.
it
It
has
sucks
helped
though.
Cal Poly and Oregon State get some good
Yeah,
matchups though. Like
yeah,
when UNC went out last year, they went up and did Oregon State that weekend as well. So I mean it sucks, but there's some perks where you're getting, some different competition out to the California teams like Cal
yeah.
Baptist, Cal Poly are both benefits of it. So and Arizona State, if they hop there. Like there's ways they can manage it, but it's certainly not optimal.
Yeah, it's pretty
I'm ready
bad.
for ACCs to be in Palo Alto though. I'll go out there for that.
There you go.
I'm ready for NCAAs to be in Arizona State or Palo Alto or somewhere
Nobody's
warm.
gonna go watch the wrestling if it's in Tempe. We're all just gonna be drinking beer and staring at things.
Listen, who
Plural.
cares? Ticket sales will be up. Ticket sales will be way up. No, another ploy. Let's get NCAAs in a warm weather spot. Can we make that happen? All right, we're done talking about schedules. I wanna give Kevin the floor here. Kevin had a interview with Coach Moore, who's now of Kent State. So Kevin, give us a little teaser, and then we'll also throw the clip in there so you guys can hear exactly what Coach Moore had to say. But what were some of the bigger points from that interview that you had with Coach Moore? That interview will be coming out on Wednesday for people that are listening and watching.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I really appreciated having the opportunity to speak with him, and it was really cool because shame on me, but I didn't even know until I really started doing a little bit of research for the interview. I was like, oh yeah, he was coaching at Kent State when they had all that success to begin with, before he
Never
left
left Kent.
and went to Cleveland, so like or went to Cleveland State. So he was awesome. He was really good talking about, and like really open talking about everything they were trying to do over the years at Cleveland State. He's talked a little bit about the athletic director and the embrace that they have at Kent State and what he feels like they're going to be able to do. One thing that I also thought was fun, I got to talk to him a little bit about. He wrestled 184 matches for Penn State in college. And that's still the number one for Penn State. And then what I didn't understand, and I should have asked him to elaborate on too, he was at Edinburgh before then, I guess. And so he had like another 20 or 30 matches there probably. So he probably had over 200 college matches. So it was fun asking him about how he balanced that as a coach, where you've done the old school badass thing, but also you're looking out for the long-term success of these guys on the team. So it was just a really fun interview. You can tell I gotta give him props. I kept him a little longer than I probably should have. When we started the interview, it was light outside, and by the time it was over, it was dark outside. So, but no, Josh Moore, awesome guy. Check that out. I'm excited.
And so forth. So we want to build these guys up. We want them. I mean, we believe in them, and we're going to tell them that quite often. We want them to believe in themselves. So I think it's a matter of just changing the perspective on coaching, the tone, the energy levels, and of course, demanding a little bit more out of them. But they already want that in themselves. So we just want to provide an environment where they can thrive and feel good about what they're doing, because wrestling, it's a tough sport. And athletes these days, in my mind, need a coach that's going to support them and be there for them and find a way to encourage them and talk about the things they're doing good, not always just talk about things they're doing bad and what they need to work on. So, looking at that, the staff that we have, maybe we're getting into this too quick, but like coaching with Devin Schroeder for a year at Cleveland State and coaching with Fred Garcia for a couple of years at Cleveland State, and then he went to Binghamton and he came back. We're all kind of have very similar philosophies on just building these guys up to get the most out of them, and that's all we can really ask, is just give us everything you've got. Continue to push back the wall just a little bit every single day and push each other. You're only as good as, your weakest link. So, if we have guys that aren't pushing too hard and supporting each other. We got to challenge those guys to do better. And really looking at the team that Kent had and the guys that we have coming in, I really think these guys are meshing well. They respect each other. They see a different tone in each other, and a lot of smiles, a lot of just happy people, and when you're happy, it doesn't matter with wrestling or any career.
Looking forward to that. Yeah, and it's funny because last week when we were talking about some of the interviews and things that we had coming up, people in the comments, there was somebody in the comments that said, are we going to get some action? And I said, Kevin will be all over that. The other one wants some coverage of Purdue as well, which I said Kevin would also love to be all over that too. So he's requesting some. I believe there was a Blaze comment, there was a Ramos comment.
Well, technically, in this last interview, you get a little bit of both because it's the Maction, but then also Devin Schroeder, formerly of Purdue, is now on staff at Kent State. So we talk a little bit about him as well.
There you
Formerly
go.
of Wyoming too, so you get some Big 12 action in there as well.
It's a little bit of everything, man. Just a big old pot of gumbo.
There you go. Gumbo's awesome. Love it. Good wrestling gumbo there for you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to everybody seeing the interview. I had it on my phone as I was traveling, and I'm listening to it while I was traveling to kind of get a gist of what you guys were talking about. So really good job there, Kevin. Everybody will definitely enjoy that. We'll have some other interviews, as I said. I'll be talking with Nate Angle later on this week. So there's a good amount of people that we're trying to tap in with, and then we'll obviously have some different content as the season gets even closer and closer. And talking to some different people and getting them on here to kind of talk to their fans and give insight into their programs as well. Now, this was a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit before getting to the next topic. So a couple weeks ago, we put up a show and we talked about the suspension list. Then I believe like a week or two goes by and we hadn't talked about that same USA Wrestling membership suspension list. And I believe it was Braves fan number on Twitter said it's funny how, you guys devoted a whole segment to the suspension list and Starocci being on it. But, he's no longer on it and you guys don't mention it. Guys, we don't really operate in the conspiracy theory realm on this show. We just didn't look at the suspension list after we talked about it. Not to say that it wasn't important, just to say that there were a number of other things that we then wanted to get to. But as always, we don't take criticism like that. We're not sensitive. So we came back to
Speak
it.
for yourself. Very
Yeah,
sensitive.
right. Very extremely sensitive. But we're, as always, we will come back, things come back around. So this is where we're at now. And Carter Starocci is no longer on that suspension list. And there's been people talking about him not being on the suspension list and bringing up the myriad of reasons for why. But I am not going to speak to it. I know Robbie has done some work into this as to kind of where we're at and why that is happening. For all of us that follow Carter, we do see that he's still training. He's been, I believe, at Training Lab for a while. A number of wrestlers and UFC fighters train there. And that's where he's been, at least from what we've seen on his social media. But when it comes to his USA Wrestling suspension, there are still a bunch of unknowns. But I'm going to turn it over to Robbie now, who has a little bit more context into why he isn't on that suspension list.
So if we rewind a couple weeks before that episode, we talked about another Nittany Lion Wrestling Club member being on that list as well. Kyle Snyder was on that temporary suspension list as well. And I think I can speak for the majority of the wrestling community that we all saw him with his pants down and what happened. And there wasn't a dispute to the events that occurred. And just because you're removed from that list does not mean that the events did not occur. So I don't want to downplay the potential issues at hand. And I don't want to say that his removal from this list means that he has been removed from speculation of being involved in things. Simply means that the safe sport investigation didn't occur, didn't find anything. Does not mean there won't be additional things moving forward. But where we stand now is that he is removed from the list. He's back eligible with USA Wrestling. Doesn't mean that there aren't additional things coming down the pipe. When we talked about this, we talked about a multitude of accusations from a multitude of people. The criminal justice process is incredibly slow in this country. And I'm trying not to say things I'm not supposed to say. This is kind of a sticky situation and tough ground to navigate.
Just say it all.
Don't be surprised.
Spit it out.
Don't be surprised if additional things come up. That's where I would go with this. He has not been proven innocent of anything. He's simply been removed from the list because the investigation didn't have findings that went along with a suspension. Does not mean there will not be further action.
He has also not been proven guilty in any of these situations either, right? Like
Correct.
there is no,
It is
has not been
ongoing.
anything. Yes, things are certainly ongoing, and it is a delicate situation, as you can clearly see with the things that Robbie has been able to find out, right? So we're handling it that way because of the parties involved, and because they deserve that sort of respect in this regard. Carter or Bo Bartlett, who we've seen is part of this, right? Like there was an article out where names were named and Bo's was one of them. So whether it is Bo or the other people that are involved that chose not to put their names into this, there are a number of different sides and stories, right? Somewhere in the middle, wherever there's an investigation, we will get that final whatever verdict of what it is. But Carter is not proven innocent, not proven guilty in any of these things as of yet. So that's kind of where we're left, right? And like I said, we weren't dodging anything. We weren't not speaking about it because of this, that, and whatever. It was more of we hadn't just come back around to it when this person wanted us to.
Well, the easiest thing to point out here, right, is that like, who's not on the list anymore? Kyle Snyder. You know who we saw? Kyle Snyder. Like they're not mutually exclusive. You know what I mean? Like, so, there's evidence number one, which is recent and relevant in this instance, I think. But no, we're not going to add a new segment called, Safe Sport Watch List Update.
Yeah.
Like that segment would suck.
It would.
Teddy Roosevelt on that one too.
And honestly, it sucks. It sucks to even like look at that list, right? Like it sucks to look at that list and be like, these are the people that have been involved in our sport who have done horrible things to other people in our sport and are not allowed around at all. Whatever the story may be, right? It is what it is. But like, we're not going to watch this list and be like, oh, he's on this list. Or he's like, it was a topic of discussion for one of our shows. Yes, we're coming back around to it to give it the breath and the air that we were asked to, right? We're nothing if we aren't listening to the people that are listening and watching, whatever else. We're, like I said, we're not going to get butthurt if you criticize us. That's not.
I also believe
not sensitive
in the same comment section of them saying that we didn't bring that up. We were also called Penn State homers, which
is why
I've never been called in my life. So there's that. So now on this show, I've defended Tom Brands and been called a Penn State homer. So we're just checking things off the list.
Listen, if that's what we got to do, I mean, I don't want to make a show where everyone is happy all the time. Like,
I hope Kevin's angry all the time. That's my goal in life.
Angry Kevin's a dangerous Kevin. You wouldn't like him when he's angry.
You wouldn't like me. No, that's true.
But no, I mean, the suspension list is what it is, and investigations could or will happen. None of that is up to us, right? So we just hope for justice and vindication for anyone who is ever in trouble or part of any of these situations, whether you are proven to be guilty or innocent or whatever it is. No matter who is implicated in anything, if you do dumb shit or bad shit, you should be dealt with accordingly. Um, that's just kind of the long and short of it. And I don't care if it's in wrestling or in life. But let's pivot. Let's get off of this. As we do when we wrap up our shows, we have kind of a fun topic. We created our own NCAA video game with cover athletes. Last week we created our folk style athlete, our folk style wrestler, stealing the attributes like we're the damn Monstars in Space Jam to create our folk style wrestler. Now this week, and I'm going to give a shout out to my man Angelo DeLeo, who I spoke about last week. Angelo's been a friend of mine for a very long time, since high school, to be completely accurate. We went to college together as well and became even better friends. And I talked to him; he's like family to me. Him and Andrew Drake are literal family to me. But I talk to those guys sometimes more than I talk to my own mother. And with them supporting the show and watching the show, they have ideas, and we talk about wrestling all the time. So this idea comes from my friend Angelo, and the question was, if you could witness 3 matches or duels again for the first time. So basically, your memory has been wiped of these 3 duels, and you get to witness them for the first time, re-experience them, all of the magic that has gone, that comes with, whether it's a match or a duel or an event or whatever it is, wrestling wise. There's 3, and you get to witness them again. What 3 would they be? Austin, I'm starting with you.
Yeah, I put some thought into this one. I think
Mind you,
maybe,
these are 3 that you have witnessed live, right? You were either in the venue or you watched them either on ESPN or Flow or whatever else. You watched these matches happen. You had the excitement. Now they are completely wiped from your memory. That was part of the premise. So,
yeah, and one that I saw live that I just couldn't wrap my head around was Moisey in the semifinals pinning Gilman in St. Louis.
That was wild.
I think that was 2026. And just Moisey grew
The
up.
future.
Oh, 2016. Yeah.
2016.
Yeah. 2016. Yeah, I think Moisey grew up like a few blocks from me, and just really crazy to see an unseated guy going through and doing that match, winning the way he did. Second, I think I gotta go Caldwell Metcalf, simply just because of the shock factor. Didn't really expect that to happen. Metcalf was so dominant throughout the year, and Caldwell was pretty damn good, but put that together a hell of a match, obviously. And third one, I'm going to cheat a little bit, Holmes, and I'm going to say there were so many damn matches growing up in the Lehigh Valley: Northampton versus Easton, Northampton versus Nazareth, anywhere from the early 90s up to the mid 2000s before I got into high school. And there were so many of those dual meets that blend together, and just good wrestling all around. There were times where there were top 2 public schools in the country battling 5 minutes from where we grew up. So, those were a lot of cool memories. Really got into wrestling, diving deep in some of those matches. So maybe a little bit of a D11 homer here, but a lot of those matches were really good, and a lot of memories from those. It'd be great to go back and watch those again.
Yeah, I back that up completely. The D11 homership is hard to get around, honestly, and not because we wrestled Division D11 and any of that, but because we were a part of it. My high school in Easton won back-to-back titles, and our high schools are literally right across the street from each other. We had parades and stuff, and we were celebrated in our hometown, and it was really, really great. So I completely agree with that. There were so many high-level wrestlers, and we were all 25 minutes from each other, 30 minutes from each other. And we all practiced together. We all knew each other. We got along off the mat for the most part. But we just like beat the hell out of each other for a very good brunt of our childhood, which was awesome.
Yeah, when they had to move dual meets from a high school gym because it wasn't big enough.
It wasn't big
you know,
enough. Yeah.
The
So it
Stabler
was-
Arena that holds thousands of people. It's awesome.
yeah. The nostalgia is real. Robbie, over to you.
All right, so I have a few different ones, and a couple of them have stories that go along with them as to why they're important to me. Um, the first one I've got a bunch written down, so let me get through a few of these. 2011 NCAA's Bubba versus David Taylor, huge upset, awesome to see. I was not too far from the main mat for that. Seeing Robles win his title, that was awesome experience. My first
That was on my
NCAA's
list
on
too,
the
Robbie. That was on my list
first
too. Steve
NCAA's
Robles. Yeah.
first NCAA's on the floor, and it was just a really, really cool experience. Next one, this one's kind of a two-parter. 2019 NCAA's, the run that Mekhi Lewis went on, and capping that off with his first national title, beat Marinelli in the quarters, beat Wick in the semis, and beat Vincenzo, was a two-time national champ at that point, in the finals. That run was incredible. I'd love to see that again. And the second part of that is when we all weren't able to watch wrestling live, getting to see the ESPN feed, that kind of brought Rock to stardom, or to the top of the game in wrestling, and made ESPN and ACC a really good partner, was Latona Camacho match. And that one sticks out in my mind because my daughter was sick and I was laying with her in bed watching this on my iPad, and like seeing the excitement and just watching this duel go back and forth, and how that match ended with the call with Rock, and then me just laying in bed holding my daughter and not being able to like freak out about it. I would love to experience that again, slightly differently, but that was a really fun one. And then the next two just kind of personal connections. 2007 Nebraska Oklahoma State was a snowy day at the Coliseum in Lincoln. Freshman Jordan Burroughs, Paul Donahoe making a run. It was came down to the last match. Oklahoma State won. It was Craig Brester wrestled Paul Donahoe, Jordan as a freshman. It was a really cool duel. And then the last one was the 2011 Maryland versus UVA duel. This is the time when UVA and Maryland were both kind of competing for ACC championships. I was coaching in Virginia, but was helping with the Maryland program, so I knew kind of both sides really well. And I actually took my high school team to watch this duel because it was the night before our regional championship. So I had a bunch of kids from Central Virginia who'd never seen a college wrestling match, and they got to sit mat side and watch this duel. I made them sit behind Robin Ficker just because I thought it was funny to be a dick about that. And then it was an awesome match, back and forth, came down to the last match. I mean, we had some ACC royalty: Matt Snyder, Joe Spizak, John Kohler, Kyle John, Josh Asper. Biggest match was Henrik and Letts at 74. John Fauzi, Spencer Myers, when his All-American year was kind of capped the duel off. But just that was a really cool duel just because of the experience, and then seeing Garland when he was still young and extra fired up, running out of the mat to yell at Jimmy Chung about calls. Him and Clemson were both freaking out, and it's just it was a really fun environment.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna go next because I want Kevin to finish things off, because I know Kevin always kind of gives us a little extra. So I'm gonna let Kevin finish off the episode with his. So I'm gonna go next, and I'm actually gonna bring in some freestyle into mine as well. I've been fortunate enough to see a good amount of like freestyle history, and I'm gonna go back to, what is it, 20? Sorry, I'm trying to look at my list here. It was 2015 Worlds, when Jordan Burroughs won his third title, and it was in Vegas. And this was the first time I'd ever been to a world championship. So the difference for me for this was, I'd obviously been on the floor of NCAAs the year prior, and that year too, but at NCAAs things were so much more strict. This is also the same year that Kyle Snyder won his first title as well. And the cool thing for me was that the world championships, I don't think media wise was ever this lax. Because any other time you go to an international tournament, they're looking at your badge and they're checking to make, even NCAAs, they're checking to make sure that you have access to where you have access. And for people that don't know, when you get your USA wrestling or your international credential, it's got numbers on it and it says basically what you have access to. For Worlds, they weren't really checking those very much. So I was able to be in the back in the warm-up room before Jordan Burroughs wrestled Godoyev, and they were warming up right next to each other. And then I was also able to be in the back while Kyle Snyder and Gadisov were getting ready as well. The Godoyev match was obviously Jordan Burroughs semifinal. Snyder's was his final, but I was able to be in the back before their semis, before their finals, like recording clips and everything else. This is also the year that James Green kind of announced himself on the international stage. He lost to Yazdani. Yazdani's underhook was just kind of pushing him all over the map, but it was an incredible year for USA, right? Tony Ramos was at 57, and I believe Reese Humphrey was in the mix and had a crazy wild match. And even internationally, there were just so many guys that you just had a chance to be around. And I had never really been around international wrestling at that level before. So experiencing that was my first ever world championships that I ever had a chance to experience. The next one is a match that only a select couple of people, I guess I should say, were able to watch. There was us in the arena, and then the people that were fortunate to sign on to Flow Wrestling in time before the site crashed and you were able to watch this entire duel meet. And that was the 2017 Penn State versus Oklahoma State duel. And it was absolutely incredible. A close second for me was Oklahoma State, Iowa, the year that Pitch pins Spencer. And mostly because of how John Smith went absolutely nuts. I guess for me, it's the Oklahoma State triple. There's two matches between Oklahoma State and Iowa, and then Oklahoma State, Penn State. The one year we had mics on John Smith and Tom Brands and this was during the match where Gilman and John Smith got into it during the handshake. So that was another one that was on my list. So the Oklahoma State, I guess, like trio of matches were matches that were just like incredible to be in that arena. Even though like my stomach dropped when I realized the site had crashed and there were, I won't say the number, but a lot of thousands of people that were signed on to see this match that could not see it if you signed in after a certain time. And, I'll always remember it as when Martin Floriani said it was, we earned our right to fail in that situation. But that match was incredible. It broke records, not just for Flow Wrestling, but for Oklahoma State as well. But those Oklahoma State matches were ridiculous. My last one will be the Gable Steveson Olympic gold medal win. I woke up late that morning and there was already, I want to say like 15 or 20 seconds off the clock. So not super late. It's not like I missed much of anything, but like it was one of those, oh shit, I'm late kind of moments where you're like, I'm missing this. And I'm watching it from my bed, and he scores in the last 2 seconds. First of all, I'd never seen a guy get cut and released in freestyle before. Didn't even know that it was a thing you could do. And then he ends up getting the win. Like I just like freaked out. I'm screaming, jumping out of my bed. I'm sure my neighbors were like, "What the hell is going on?" But that match was so incredible, and it was a match that I would love to be able to just like rewatch for the first time. Because there were so many firsts of didn't know a guy could get cut in that amount of time, didn't realize that heavyweights could move that quickly, just all of it. And it was absolutely incredible.
And the commentary from John there was amazing. As
It was
well.
amazing. Like
Mhm, yeah.
everything, like the stars aligned on that match, and it was just incredible. Claunch, floor is yours, my friend.
Dude, John Smith is getting some love on this podcast.
He really
here
is.
today,
I wish
man.
I was wearing
It's-
my John Smith is my homeboy t-shirt,
This
but
is the John Smith episode, man.
And
For
I'm
sure.
not even wearing a vest. This is unacceptable.
So I went a couple ways here. First of all, you couldn't pay me enough money to rewatch Ann Arbor Pioneer wrestle Pinckney High School. The wrestling in Michigan when I grew up sucked. Like you guys had it made. You guys could be like, "Oh, our high schools were sweet," you know? No, good for you. Very happy for you. So the 3 matches. This one I was there live for. Nick Simmons versus Henry Cejudo at the 2012 Olympic Trial semifinals. To this day, the most absolutely badass match I've ever seen. Anyone who will listen to me, I bring it up. It's just, it's awesome. They're throwing each other all over the place. There's a million exchanges where you think one person is going to score, then the other person scores. Just high level dudes being dudes wrestling, man. It was fantastic. You know what's also impressive about this is no one really has any overlaps. Like none of all of what you said were great answers, but like none of them is what I have written down here. I went Jason Ness versus Daniel Dennis. I think
yeah.
Holmes, you might have brought this up last week.
no,
And
it was
you know what
Robbie
sucks?
that talked about that one. That one
Was it?
good. Yeah.
I feel bad because since like for whatever reason in college, I did not like Daniel Dennis. I don't know if it was his mustache. I don't know what
He's
it
looked
was.
like he's 56 since he was 16. So
And it just looked goofy. And I was like, all right, who is this dude with a Daniel Dennis name? All right.
But you
He's
love
kicking
him now.
everyone's ass. I love him now, you know, now that you kind of know his story and everything, and you're like, actually, that guy's exactly who I would want to root for.
so lumberjack.
But yeah, that Jason Ness win, man, that was wild. It was really, really cool for them. I wrote this one down. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go honorable mention Kellen Russell, Boris Novachkov when he broke his ankle. I know I brought this up last week, I think, too, but still, that was pretty awesome. But really, the answer for the third one here is Eric Grajales versus Andrew Alton at Cliff Keen Arena. That match was completely insane. Both of them gassed out like 2 or 3 times during the match, and then they just have like these random bursts of like explosive wrestling. It was fantastic. So that one I would love to rewatch again. I also wrote down 2 that I never want to see again. Ryan Chiarella against Johnny Hendricks in the NCAA finals. Tommy made me rewatch this during one of the early episodes of Blood Round, and I was so mad. I was so mad. I was like punching the table. I still can't watch it again. And then yeah, the Nick Heflin versus I think it was Justin Zierup match. That was another Michigan Ohio State duel. It's the worst officiating tragedy I've ever seen in my life. And I remember watching it because my buddies and I had gone to the bar. So technically, Holmes I'm cheating because we had watched it on like I'd recorded or whatever. But it's after the bar. It's like 3 a.m. at this point, and I'm watching this officiating just complete travesty. And I'm losing my mind and I'm screaming. And then my wife comes out and she's like, Kevin, shut up. It's 3 a.m. And I'm like, but you don't understand this bullshit. Anyway, so that was one I don't ever want to watch again. And then the last match I had to throw in here is Teddy Roosevelt versus William Howard Taft. I would like to see that one. Also cheating. I wasn't there to see that one originally, but I'd like to watch it.
Yeah,
So,
bring it on back.
Yeah.
Teddy rides in on a bison for his walkout.
Yes. To throw in, I forgot to mention these ones too. I also had the women's angle of Helen winning her gold and Tamara Mensah winning hers as well.
those were fantastic.
Those were awesome. But to go along with the matches I'd never want to see again, the Ian Miller debacle at NCAAs as well.
That was so aggravating. Oh my God. I can't imagine being a coach in that situation. That was painful to watch as a fan.
Yeah. Free
Good
Ian Miller
God.
will be a hashtag that lives in infamy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a good
Also,
times.
remember when Jay Ayala had Max Dean on his back? That was cool, and he didn't get back points. That's fucking bullshit.
Remember that takedown Jo didn't have? That sucked too.
Yeah.
So many things. So many things. Maybe that's a segment for another day. Anyway, those are the matches we would love to see and hate to see again. As always, add yours into the comments, tweet back with which ones you would love to see or hate to see or anything else. Really appreciate the feedback from my friends and as well as anybody else that is tweeting or commenting or liking or subscribing or sharing. We appreciate our sponsors as well, Adidas Wrestling and Poseidon Strength. Make sure you guys are heading to their websites, giving them some love using the discount codes that are down below. If you have any suggestions of people we should interview or a fun way to end the show or a topic that you want us to discuss that maybe we discussed before and you want us to come back to it, we've seen people do that before. Certainly shout us out. Let us know. We don't, like I said, we're not fragile. We're not going to tell you that you're clueless or that you're a fucking moron. Just not our
Can I
bag.
call somebody a snowflake?
Not our bag. Just not what we do. But it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. We like to have fun. We like to poke fun at basically everyone. So we'll always continue to have fun. Make sure you guys want to look out for Kevin's interview with Coach Moore tomorrow. Wednesday is when that one will be coming out. I will be checking in with Nate Angle later on this week. Maybe I'll bust out the gift that Nate Angle sent me from Mexico, one of his Mexico trips. Now that we are in football season to start the interview out. I don't know.
Didn't send me any presents, Nate.
It might listen, this is a unique present. I don't know if I'll have it as a prop if I can find it. But we'll certainly have a good time talking with Nate. But yeah, if anything, shoot us a message, comment, like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. We'll see you guys again next time. Peace.